Now, did you know that the NHS has a constitution? Well, it does, and the constitution provides various rights for patients, people who use the NHS. In 2010, this was updated to include the importance of the ability of people within the NHS, patients, to choose whether they're on a male or female ward. This was a sex-based right that was introduced to the NHS. But now it's being updated, and the language is being changed. But not in the way that language is usually changed when it comes to our health service. No, it's being changed to include the importance of what the government call biological sex. So instead of the sort of pamphlets that we've seen often in emphasising the importance of something called chest feeding rather than breastfeeding, no, this is language going back in the other direction. At least that's the proposal for the constitution of the NHS. But let's talk through it now. I'm joined by Sharron Davies, the women's rights campaigner and former Olympic Games swimmer. Sharron, thank you for making the time this evening. Usually when we see language being updated in documents to do with the NHS, it's going in the other direction.
It depends on what you call the other direction. I think this is all about fact and truth. So the front page of the Telegraph today says that biological sex is a fact. Now, biological sex is a fact. You know, there are only male and females. There are only two gametes, a large and a small, and human beings cannot change their sex. So it's not kind to anybody to tell young children in particular that that isn't the case. So I think we just have to be honest. And in things like medicine, where it's really important that we are checking a male for prostate cancer and we're checking a female for cervical or ovarian cancer, that we know that, you know, what sex people actually are. And then obviously in something like sport, you know, you mentioned that I'm a feminist campaigner. I'm really just a sports campaigner. You know, I've really just been on board with regards to trying to get the equal opportunities for people that are female in sport to the same opportunities that males have. And obviously in a physical activity like sport, it's really important that we can categorise that by sex. And so therefore we have female races so that 51% of the world's population get to have those opportunities.
Now, there will be those that say that this is a very, very minor issue that the government is sort of press releasing and promoting today, that it affects such a small proportion of people in the country. In the census that was carried out in England and Wales very recently, just 0.1% of the public reported that they were transgender female. Just 0.1% reported that they were transgender male. Should we really be spending so much time focusing on something that really affects so very few people?
I think what you've just said is unbelievably disingenuous. You know, I'm sorry, you just said that only the trans people matter. 51% of the population in this country are female, and women's rights at the moment have been under attack constantly, whether that's with regards to dignity and safe spaces, whether that's with regards to the loss of their language. I mean, it's insulting to be called a chest feeder or a cervix haver. I mean, and this didn't happen to men, it only happened to women. It was only women's languages that was attacked. So I'm sorry, Tom, that's unbelievably disingenuous to say that only affects a small number of people. It affects a huge number of women, how they are referred to and whether they get equal opportunities and dignity and safety in their private spaces. So no, absolutely not. I think let's move forward and we need more often.
You're right that when it comes to ridiculous language like chest feeding, that is palpably nonsense. But that hasn't necessarily been the forefront of any of this conversation. But perhaps what would matter more would be a government to focus on the 44,000 cases last year of women and men being forced to be in mixed-sexed wards, which was meant to be out of the rules, which was meant to be outruled in 2010, but because of the pressures that the NHS is under, those rules are routinely being broken, irrespective of anything to do with transgender people.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, and this comes down to safety, because we know figures-wise, you know, the sexual offences, 98% are by men, or by males, OK? So it's females that need that protected space. You're right. I mean, the NHS is under unbelievable stress and strain in every single direction. But I think women are quite frightened at the moment and quite scared when they go into those sort of places. They can't say, please, I would like, you know, a female doctor. I would like a female carer. You know, I know of horrendous stories of disability, people who have been physically and verbally assaulted because they've just said, I would like a female to tend to me, please. And that we've got to be able to have this open, respectful debate for both sides, for everybody. You know, everybody needs to be thought of and be kind to. But for a long time, I think women have just been literally the ones that are supposed to succumb, and no one is thinking about being kind to them. And I can tell you in sport, no one is being kind to the women. We're just being told we're not entitled to what the men have still got. Just today in the States, there was a bunch of 5 girls that were throwing the shot put in West Virginia, and they decided to say that we're not going to throw the shot put because they just introduced a 14-year-old boy who wanted to throw the shot put. And instead of saying, OK, well, we'll remove the boy, they banned the 5 girls from the women's category of shot put. You know, I mean, it's outrageous. I don't know what girls are supposed to do. Are we just supposed to say we don't matter, you know, and just move over?
I think you're right. I think you're right that in the United States there are some extreme examples of this going very, very wrong, some exclusionary examples of this. But to return to the United Kingdom...
That's not true. So here in the UK, there's still 57 sports that don't protect the female category, and we still have 5 combat sports. That's sports, fighting sports, that don't protect the female category.
Can we return to the NHS? Because I want to focus on this issue that is being changed